All right, folks, it's 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone in the chat just to keep the distractions down a bit. If you can see my screen and my slides, you could just give me a thumbs up, make sure everybody can hear me okay. Perfect. All right. So today we're going to talk about the Improving Neighborhood Outcomes in Disproportionately Impacted Communities grant. These are under the state fiscal recovery funds, and we're going to go over program overview, the application, the eligibility criteria, the review criteria, and then let you guys ask any questions that you may have with regards to the application or the criteria with as much time as we have remaining. I do tend to talk fast, so we are recording this and I'll post it on our website. It should be up by tomorrow on our website on the For Grantees page. So you can revisit it there if you want to share it or just revisit it for the application. There is $250 million under this program total, and OPB we will fund either in whole or part any, all, or none of the applications submitted in response to the NOFO. We tend to get a lot of questions regarding if there are some eligible projects or there are some projects that get scored higher. If it's all or nothing, and that's not the case, we can do it in part, as we have previously in other tranches. The application is made available on our website, and I'll show you guys in a second when I walk you through the actual application. But you can click that and it takes you to the SurveyMonkey apply link. You can complete it, the application first. You can do the tasks associated with that, and I'll go through that again with you later. Just like the W-9, the vendor management form, etc. You can do this in any order that you want. When you do get to the application portion of it, though, you do have to input information into each of those boxes to continue at the bottom to move to the next project narrative section, etc. The application opened on September 1st and will close on November 18th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Eligible applicants include a unit of local government, county, nonprofits, and the project must occur within a qualified census tract. These funds will be reimbursement method for eligible activity through the project period, which will be upon award approval. So unlike our first tranche funds where it was water, sewer, broadband, negative economic impact, etc., and those funds were able to go back to March 3rd of 2021, these funds are forward-looking. So looking for new projects, and again, those projects would start upon being awarded by OPB, going through our onboarding process and being moved to the approved status. All eligible applicants must have and maintain an active unique entity identifier, which we call a UEI, from sam.gov. I just want to preface this with they still have a pretty significant backlog. So if you anticipate applying for these funds at all, please go to sam.gov today. It is my understanding that when you do apply for these, although it may not be active, they at least give you that UEI. Oh, someone's asking about the lobby pop-up. If you just click view lobby, I can't move that for you on your side, but if you click view lobby, it'll show it on your right side of the screen rather than popping up directly in the middle, if that helps. So again, the sam.gov does have a backlog. So if you have any intention of applying, we will need you to have the unique entity identifier. And again, from what I've been told, you get the UEI. Then at some point during that process, I'm not sure what their backlog is right now, then it becomes active. And we do ask that you maintain the active UEI throughout the award. So I'm sure most of you saw this in the NOFO. This is just the Treasury information on the program overview. But the final rule included enumerated uses for disproportionately impacted communities for developing neighborhood features that promote improved health and safety outcomes, such as parks, green spaces, recreational facilities, sidewalks, pedestrian safety features like crosswalks, and projects that increase access to healthy foods, street lights, neighborhood cleanup, and other projects to revitalize public spaces. The final rule also recognizes that the public health impacts of the pandemic are broader than just the COVID-19 disease itself and includes substantial impacts on mental health and public safety challenges like rates of violent crime, which are correlated with the neighborhood's built environment and features. So for these projects, for parks and recs, green spaces, et cetera, that qualify under these categories, again, to go back, they have to be located in a qualified census tract, which we refer to as QCTs. Applicants must use the Georgia QCT tract dashboard to verify that the project proposed resides within a QCT in the state. Applications received that are not within a QCT will not be eligible for review. The September 1 through November 18th, 2022 application for this program will require the QCT ID. I think it's the number for your proposed projects. And I'll walk you through exactly this as well for the verification steps, but you're just going to go to that dashboard. You're going to select the county first. Then you have to hit apply. I think that's a little step that is at the very bottom. Even I missed that the first time I used it. Then when you select your zip code, you also hit apply as well to filter. And then you want to zoom in to that map to get that street level view to make sure that address resides in that proposed area. If you ever feel like you're just not seeing something correctly or it's not filtering right, you can always click the home button, and I'll show you guys what that looks like here in a second. All applicants must have an organization or subrecipient that will serve as the fiduciary agent and assume overall responsibility for the grant. Again, local unit of government, county, nonprofits. You can partner. That's a big question that we get. You can partner on grants, but just please note that whoever submits the application would be receiving the award and would be the subrecipient, and have that fiduciary responsibility. For eligible project activity, there are two program categories. The first one would be development of or improvements, maintenance to parks or recreational facilities in the QCT, qualified census tract. Funding for the second program category, funding for increased repair or maintenance. And we did. Okay. Second, guys, someone to control the slide. There we go. Funding for increased repair or maintenance needs to respond to significantly greater use of public facilities during the pandemic. And the example they use specifically with Treasury's final rule is increased use of parks resulting in damage or increased need for maintenance. So during the pandemic, lots and lots of folks started visiting, parks. If you have any maintenance that needs to happen or any, damage that occurred, you could request funding for that if it is due to a significant increase in your facility during the pandemic. Allowable costs are determined in accordance with the cost principles identified in 2 CFR 200 subpart E. Federal funds committed to an award may only be used to cover allowable costs incurred during the period of performance for eligible activity outlined by the program category allowable activity. All applicants are subject to reporting and auditing requirements per federal guidelines and OPB terms and conditions. Recipients of state fiscal recovery funds must align to policy requirements under 2 CFR 200. 2 CFR 200 is outlined here. So the assistance listing for these funds, again, under state fiscal recovery funds are 21.027. That includes subpart B, general provisions, subpart C, pre-federal award requirements and contents of federal awards. Subpart D, post-federal award requirements. Subpart E, cost principles. Subpart F, audit requirements. And all these are extremely important, but we do want to just highlight two of these briefly for you as you start to think through your projects, any contracts that you may enter into or agreements. So subpart D, post-federal award requirements, do require competitive procurement. And so we have a short guide essentially for you guys on our website under the For Grantees webpage, under the important documents. And someone from our team can link it here, but that just gives you a general understanding of the thresholds and what the outcome should be with regard to competitive procurement. And then additionally, we wanted to highlight subpart F, the audit requirements. If you receive $750,000 or more in federal funding, you are required to go through a single audit. Wanted to move from that to the scoring criteria. So for this grant program, you will have a description of the issue in your application, and that will comprise 30% of your scoring. The project design and implementation is also 30%. Capabilities and competencies is going to be 15%. Performance measures will be 10%, and budget will be 15%. Match funding is not required, but it is encouraged for these. So cities, counties that may be on, you can use your ARPA funding to match. There is a section in the application. Again, it's optional. And if you don't have any match, you simply just put you don't have match. But we want to make sure we track that as we go through the application process if you are going to be putting match towards. So for all categories for the description of the issue, and we have two sets, I'll just go forward really briefly. So we have development and acquisition. For all of these categories, you're going to be required to describe the type of proposed neighborhood feature to promote improved health and safety outcomes. Describe and quantify the types of resources and features of or on the property. Describe the current uses, if any, or disposition of the property to be acquired or developed, if uses will need to be discontinued or the site rehabilitated, if there are any existing non-outdoor recreation or other non-public uses that are intended to continue on the property on an interim or permanent basis and are proposed in the future, these should also be explained. Describe constraints of the property, example, existing developments, easements, rights of way, above ground, underground utilities, etc. Applicants requesting funds for increased repair or maintenance needs to respond to significantly greater use of public facilities during the pandemic must describe the significant increase in the use of the facility to be repaired or maintained with the requested funds. Combination projects. So if you have development and acquisition, if your project does not propose acquisition, just please put NA in there in the box. For development, you will describe the planned physical improvements in your facilities and the reason or reasons such development is needed. Explain whether the work involves new development or rehabilitation or replacement of existing recreation facilities. Under the acquisition category, provide a description of the property, including the current ownership and an explanation of the needs for its acquisition. State whether the acquisition would create a new public park, recreation area, or if it will expand an existing site, and if so, by how much. Describe the plans for developing the property for recreation purposes after acquisition and the time frame for the start and completion of development and when it will be open for public use. Describe the status, sorry, I skipped one. Nope, yeah. Describe the status of the acquisition, including negotiations with a land owner and development of due diligence materials such as title work and appraisal. For the project design implementation, again, this is 30%, provide a description of the proposed activities and how the activities will engage with the community and any community partners that will be involved. Application should identify the program objectives and ensure each objective is measurable and identify strategies to achieve the objectives. Applicants must describe how the organization will ensure project completion by October 31st, 2026. Additionally, the applicants must include a comprehensive timeline as an attachment in the supporting documentation section, which I refer to as a task, I think, in the application. That identifies the milestones, the funding source for each milestone, lists those deliverables numerically, and indicates who's responsible for each of those activities. Capabilities and competencies, 15%. applicants should demonstrate their capabilities to implement the project and the competencies of the staff assigned to the project to include the financial management of funding. You should also detail the level of support for the project, as well as the expertise of the individuals who will be responsible for managing the project. And then also demonstrating your experience managing projects with federal funding. Performance measures, Amanda can put the link for this document in there, but we have the compliance and reporting guide from Treasury, and that's how we know what the Treasury will collect from us. For a lot of these projects, though, we will ask for additional information, additional metrics on the project, but that will all be posted online. Applicants should describe the process for measuring project performance, identify who will collect the data, who is responsible for performance measurement, and how the information will be used to guide and assess the program. Successful applicants will demonstrate understanding of performance data to be collected and reported. For each project goal, applicants should identify the criteria that will determine how and if the objectives have been successfully met, and one or more specific measurable outcomes and the data sources that will be used to determine whether the outcome was accomplished. And then your budget, which is 15%. Applicants should submit a budget that is complete, reasonable, cost-effective, and is an allowable use of the funding under the category chosen. The budget must be based on quoted estimates and calculation and not rounded guesstimates. All budget totals will require validation based on the calculation provided in the upload version. So just make sure you retain that documentation for the basis of your calculations. We do ask that you upload a detailed budget worksheet. And one of the questions we always get is, how detailed that should be. And it should be as granular level of information as you have. So if you've spec'd it out, about how much it's going to cost, providing those breakdowns from your, engineer, contractor, et cetera, will help us see how you got to those estimates. This is just more information on that detailed budget worksheet. You're also be asked to complete in your narrative section of the budget, and we ask that you break it out for these cost categories, in addition to what you'll see on the application, which I'll show you in just a second, but breaking it out in your narrative for land and structures, architectural and engineering fees, site work, demolition and removal, and then the construction piece. In addition to the application and those tasks that I've talked about, we have the vendor management form we asked you to do, a risk assessment, some other things that I'll show you in a moment. We're also going to ask that you upload project images and photos. Your photos should show current site conditions, immediate needs, surrounding environment, and planned areas of work. A plan or sketch of site features and improvements, identifying the location of planned recreational improvements or other features, such as where the public will access the site, parking, et cetera. Can also be a layout or design from a qualified architectural or design professional. You will also be asked to upload a recreational area map, a map showing the location of the project and the surrounding vicinity within the QCT, that qualified census tract. Identify the qualified firms and applicants that you intend to use or have used in the past or have partnered together on for the project. This includes your general contractors, maintenance contractors, fixture and equipment suppliers or firms, designs, and engineering firms. All right, I want to skip over to the application real quick so I can show you guys what this looks like. Just don't want to see my calendar, so hang on one second. Share the other screen. Okay. So once you go to the link that's on our website for this, it's going to take me to all the applications that I have open in SurveyMonkey Apply. As you can see, I have several here. I'm going to go down to the improving neighborhood outcomes and disproportionately impacted communities and click start. And let me zoom in a little bit more because you guys probably can't see this. Okay, so the application's at the top. And again, you can do these in any order, but you have to go consecutively through the application to proceed to the next section. But I can go in here and I can do my vendor management form. Once I click on this task, it opens up the instructions. Then I go and attach the file and mark as complete. And I'm going to do this for each of the individual tasks that I'm asked to do here. So you have a tool for assessing risk that you would download, complete, and then upload, and then mark as complete. For the sam.gov UEI, you're just going to take a screenshot, save as PDF, etc., something to show us that you have that sam.gov registration for your UEI. And then you're going to go to our sample detailed worksheet. It's going to take you to download this. This guy right here. You're going to complete the budget worksheet. And again, you can kind of get a sense for how detailed we want it by each category. And then you're going to save it to your desktop, to your documents, etc. And then you're going to upload it back in this section under the attached file. Financials, we're just looking for your financials, either your recent external audit, financial report, your ACFR, audit opinion, and management letter. So you'll just attach those. Project timeline, again, we went through that in the outline of the scoring criteria. You have an optional letters of support. So if you have those to upload here, this would be the way you do that. We will not accept them outside of this because this is really our only way of linking them to the application to ensure the review committee can see that it is with, you know, whatever city, county, et cetera, nonprofit submitted the application. So please, we ask that you upload them here only and not send them via mail where it's very difficult for us to kind of match those because you are given a specific application ID. And then just below that are where your project images and photos, your sketch, your map, names of the qualified firms, et cetera, are going to be. And then this last one is consolidated PDF. That's just for OPB use. So you don't even need to worry about that. It says it on here as well. On some of them, I think this is kind of cut off. So it just says consolidated application PDF, depending on how you're viewing it. But you don't need to upload anything there. And if you accidentally do, that's okay too. All right, so I'm going to go into the application. And again, like you have to enter in something in here. For the authorized representative, this section is for the person within your organization, your nonprofit, your city, et cetera, that would have the signing authority for the grants agreement. So that's what we're looking for here. In my case, if I'm doing something for our agency, it's obviously going to be my agency director. And this is where you're going to put your SAMS number in. It does validate it based on the number of letters and characters that should have. And I'm just going to put a date in there. Your EIN number. How many years the organization's conducted the program for which it's requesting. What percentage of the organization's budget is grant funded. I'm just going to put 20 so I can continue. And here's the project information. Which project type best describes my project? I'm going to do a development of an improvement. And you can put the primary project location in this first one. And then when you go to the QCT dashboard, zoom in here so you guys can see this. You can see it okay. There's a lot of information. So I'm going to go up top to the top left and go to my county. So for this one, when you click here, when you have that long list, it's really hard to see apply. But if you have to click the apply button, I think that is oftentimes missed. So make sure you hit apply. And then I'm going to come over to my zip code. and pick a zip code. Oh, see, I didn't apply. Go. Gonna filter out. And the map's not populating on this one. So you can see the QCT, the census tract here. I think I confused it by putting in a zip code. Here. It's not liking me today. When I know. Not liking this today. Hang on. Apply. Oh, I didn't uncheck all. And then apply. And so here are my QCTs on my side. In a perfect world, this would have pulled up the map. It is being very finicky today, of course, when I'm doing a webinar. This map would populate and you can actually scroll in to make sure that this is within the QCT. Try it one more time just to make sure. So let me go into, so we'll highlight this one. So you can continue to zoom in here and you can get to address level once you have chosen that, just to make sure that that QCT is actually in, or sorry, your address is actually within that QCT. And if you're getting anything finicky that's not working, just hit that home button and it'll clear everything for you. It'll clear your filter, so you'll just have to start all over. But this should keep the map up after you hit the apply button. And it's not liking what I'm doing. So just let us know if you have any issues with it. We can have our IT folks check that, but it should populate this map for you. I was just on it a second ago and it was working fine. So then you would come in here and you would put in your QCT name, your number, whether it's 516. And then if you have multiple locations, if your park or facility span 2 different zip codes or whatnot, you could come in here and just separate them by commas. Enter your requested amount. A new project. How many program staff persons are dedicated to this project? Just gonna put some results in here. This question is, how does your organization intend to sustain this program project after initial grant funds expire? For my explanation, I just put we will use this funding as a one-time project. We will not need funds to continue anything. Save and continue. Oh, this is a validation on it. I will remove that. Okay, so here's where you're going to input all of your information. You have a proposal title, your project start dates, your proposal summary here should be no more than 400 words. It's just a very succinct outline, very brief description. It's what will be on the OPB's website if you were to be awarded. And then all the information that we just covered is here, and you would input this here as well. And it tells you where your current value is and how many words you have left. Same for each section. And again, you do have to input information to continue for each of these. And then here's your budget amount. So I'm just putting just numbers in. It does not like commas. So if you get an error, like if you were to continue at this, it won't calculate for you. It'll say error, node not found. Just go back in and remove that comma, and it'll total it up for you. So there's your total requested funds for this program. Then after that, you'll be asked to provide the budget narrative, this breakdown after that, and then a budget narrative B, which is breaking it down for the land and structures, architecture, and engineering fees, site work, demolition and removal, and construction fees. I'm sorry, construction costs. Your match funds, again, it's encouraged, it's not required. If you don't have any match funds, just enter 0. That way you can proceed. And the next page will just take you to an attestation showing you what the responsibilities of the grant are, and the 2 CFR 200 requirement as well. All right, Amanda, I'm going to briefly pause for a second. I know that was a lot to cover, so I want to make sure we're pausing for some application questions. So I know you're looking in the chat. Jasmine Esquilin is our program specialist for this program. I'm sorry I didn't introduce her in the beginning, but she will be your program specialist to answer all of your questions, walk you through any of this. If you have issues with the QCT map, like you just saw me go through, she's your go-to for that as well. We will check on that. But Jasmine, do you see any questions in the chat?
Yes, so the first question I am seeing is Jared wants to know if they can use ARPA funds that for matching.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can.
Right. Thank you. Secondly, I see here, Jared also wants to know what are the procurement requirements for the architects and engineers and the grant writers?
So all of your procurement for goods and services, David, I don't know if David Luker, are you on here?
Yes, I'm on.
You wanna take that one since you're the guru?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so regarding procurement for AE firms, construction management firms, contractors, the like, 2 CFR 200.320 outlines the different procurement mechanisms that are available under the uniform guidance. Jen mentioned that that executive summary, if you will, in the chart that shows the different aggregated expenditure amounts and the different requirements associated with each of those levels of spending. But 2 CFR 200.320 is the best resource to really understand the guidance yourself. There is a non-competitive option available. OPB has worked with RSM to produce narrative justification form, if you will, for those instances where competition is maybe not achievable. However, as Jen noted, competition is encouraged, and 2 CFR 200.320 really lays out all the different ways that you are able to procure. Hopefully that was helpful, and I can go into more as the questions come through. I'm sure they will.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The next question I see here is from Linda. Is it not possible to list your contractor for this project until you receive qualified bids from contractors? We will also have to do procurement for engineer and architects. So how can we list firms?
Only if you already have those in mind, like if you get, if you, based on previous work, et cetera, people you've worked with in the past, if it is something where you would be putting something in for a sole source justification, as David mentioned, something like that. If you are going through the bidding process and don't have that, it still needs to come based on some type of cost breakdown, some kind of methodology behind how you got to what you got to and putting that into your budget. So you wouldn't have to necessarily break it down to say, I'm going to use X, unless you just plan on using someone, ensuring that the guidelines are there. But so you would just put the total, put it for engineering fees, et cetera, and show us kind of what your estimate was based on. And then when you bid it out, we know that fluctuation is going to happen. Things may come in a lower bid or higher, et cetera, based on, you know, where we're at. And you can adjust that with a budget adjustment, you know, once you accept the award, et cetera. We'll also collect a final budget from you. So there's multiple ways to update that budget based on where you're at in the procurement process.
Thank you, Jen. I see here from Philip, are Davis-Bacon and Section 3 requirements part of the procurement process?
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, so as far as Davis-Bacon is concerned, Treasury has indicated that Davis-Bacon is generally not applicable to American Rescue Plan Act funds. However, projects that exceed $10 million will be subject to the act, and projects that are ongoing, where ARPA is picking up or becoming involved in the project, if prior federal requirements included Davis-Bacon, they would still be in effect through the ARPA funded portion. So generally no, but with a few exceptions, Davis-Bacon can be. Now, I may have to defer back to you, Jen, on, I think Section 3 was the other question. I'm not quite sure about that. And that may be something that we have to connect with DCA and HUD on, but I'm not entirely sure.
For which section?
Can you read that question back? I think it was Section 3 requirements being a part of the
Yes, it was Section 3 requirements.
Yep, that is something we'll put some FAQs on up. We do have, we're talking with them tomorrow, so.
Let's move forward to the next question. Catherine would like to verify, can a single agency submit multiple projects for review?
Yes, we just asked that if you're submitting multiple projects that you submit them separately for this rather than what we did in the first round because of the verification of the QCT. So yes, you can just submit them separately.
Janet, shall we take a few more questions?
Yeah, I see a couple of them in the chat, Jasmine, about expenses for grant writers or things like that. So I just want to preface it, I was just about to get into this, but these are forward-looking funds. So from your award approved date, which is when you go through the onboarding process, you've been awarded, your grant goes from awarded to approved once you've met the requirements. Part of that is your UEI, your vendor location so we can pay, et cetera. That is when we will reimburse you. That will be your project performance start date. So we would not backdate anything on these. So anything on the planning side of things, grant writer, et cetera, would not be included in this proposal.
Thank you. I see general questions regarding if this recording will be posted on the website. Yes, it will be. Similar for the PowerPoint. Jim would like to know, can a city apply for a project that would improve facilities within a condo HOA that is not right of way?
So we're going to get a lot of those questions. I would just say get with us offline on the very specific ones because we have to go through a couple different things with you. So we need some more information on that. We also need to know if it's in a QCT. If it's not, then it's automatically not eligible. So for those, we ask that you set up a meeting request with Jasmine and myself, and we can kind of work through that with you to ask, you know, a couple more questions and get some more information from you on that.
Jessica has a question regarding if the local procurement policy exempts professional services, are you allowed to follow the local policy, for design services? Can you apply for a variance if you've been working with them with a qualified firm?
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was about to say, how to take that. So in instances where the local procurement policy is not as stringent as 2 CFR, 2 CFR will apply. That said, in Section 2 of 200.320 that I previously referenced, sub-bullet 4 of that same section basically addresses A&E professional services, and it does state that the non-federal entity may use competitive proposal procedures for qualification-based selection of AE firms. When the qualifications are evaluated and the most qualified offer is selected, subject to a negotiation of fair and reasonable compensation. The method where price is not used as a selection factor can only be used in procurement of AE professional services, and it can't be used to purchase other types of services through AE firms that are a potential source to perform the work. So I know that was pretty prescriptive from the guidance, but it is very specific. So if your local policy is more flexible than that, it would not be able to be utilized. You would have to maintain compliance with 2 CFR 200.320.
Thank you, David. Dan would like to know if county staff will be performing some of the work, for example, laying asphalt. Would that count as a match?
So we're really looking for a dollar value, like the ARPA dollars, to be included as match when that's encouraged, but you can certainly mention it as in kind if the city's going to be providing that, just so the reviewers can take that into consideration. And just when I see a lot of very specific ones that are coming out now, like where they have a specific idea, just not a whole lot of information. And unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of time to get through this. But the other issue is that, again, we need to know if it's in a QCT before we kind of direct you guys more on those. So if you would just, again, set up a meeting or ping Jasmine with your ideas so she can kind of pull some more questions from you to make sure we're getting the whole picture. But I did want to answer this last one that Kristen had about land that we would like to develop and put a playground as well as a volleyball court. Would that be two different projects or considered one project? So I think where your scope aligns, the same, that's the same land. So your project area would be the same. Your aerial views, as long as it's within that same QCT, that we would consider that one project. So I just wanted to answer that briefly. So that's, again, same land in a QCT, everything else is eligible, etc. We would consider that as one project. So Jasmine, I'm going to keep going through the slides, and if we have some time at the end, we'll kind of go back through these. Okay. If you were selected for an award, an applicant will then be sent a terms and conditions agreement that will need to be executed within 60 days of the award announcements. The state will not accept proposed changes or amendments to the terms and conditions. And failure or refusal to comply with this requirement will result in award funds being rescinded. This is just a timeline. It's in the NOFO as well as on our website. The NOFO was released on the 26th. Again, the application opened on the 1st. The 6th, obviously, is today. November 18th, that's when the application window closes, and it will close at 11:59 p.m. Our staff will be available until 5 p.m. for technical assistance. In previous grants that we have seen where folks, might not last minute, just want to reiterate, we will only be available during business hours for that purpose. So please, where you can, we know things come up, but where you can, just get it in early, just in case you're having any technical issues on your side that we can walk you through, technical issues on our side, etc. We can walk you through those. November 19th through December 19th, that's the application review, that is tentative, as well as the January 2023 final recommendations and preliminary awards. That also is tentative, just depends on availability and the volume of applications we receive. Period of performance, again, the funds must be expended by October 31st, 2026, but the start of the project is going to be the date of the award approval by OPB. Only new projects that have not started at the time of the release of the NOFO are eligible for Improving Neighborhood Outcomes in Disproportionately Impacted Communities grant program. Here is the link for that reporting and compliance guide. I think it's also in the chat. Subrecipients awarded funding through this grant will be subject to audit or review by the Treasury Inspector General and the Government Accountability Office. Additionally, all subrecipients will undergo a subrecipient monitoring program. And this is Jasmine's email in our grant box. We can get you facilitated. We can get you over to RSM for questions on procurement. You have those on the front end that you'd like to ask. And we will get this video as well as some FAQs up on our website as soon as we can. Thank you guys so much for joining us today.